Voting processes for the 2023 World Service Conference. The primary topics in this presentation are how and when to do a roll call, what is a quorum, some of the preparation you need to do, how and when to raise your hand, how and when to lower your hand, various parliamentary procedures. Note that there is some overlap between this presentation and topics covered in the presentations on Robert's Rules and on the Standing Rules of Order. These three presentations fit together. How and when to do a roll call. According to Robert's Rules, an entire conference will meet for one session. The session is the entire duration of the conference. Session versus meeting is like the way we use group and meeting to mean two different things. A group meets every week. Every time a group meets, that is a meeting. A conference session will last several days. That session will be broken into many meetings. Those meetings are separated by recess times. When a meeting is ready to begin, the facilitator and secretary will do a roll call.
All cameras must be on during the roll call. If your camera is not on, the facilitator can declare you are absent. If you are marked as absent, then you cannot speak and cannot vote. When you are able to get your camera turned on, then use a point of order, described later, to let the facilitator know you are now participating. One by one, the secretary will call the names of everyone registered for this conference. When your name is called, say "Present" and wait for the secretary or facilitator to acknowledge you. The roll call will be used to set the quorum for this meeting. The word quorum is defined as the minimum number of members of a conference that must be present at any of its meetings to make the proceedings of that meeting valid. Robert's Rules and the Standing Rules of Order define the quorum as one more than half of those registered for this conference. If more than half of those registered are not present during the roll call, then this meeting cannot make motions or vote on anything. That is why it is important for you to be present a few minutes early. Be ready for business. Prepare for the conference in advance. Verify your microphone and camera are working. Note, the conference is very busy. It is far easier to participate using a computer than it is if you're using a cell phone. A simple way to verify your setup is to join a regular meeting somewhere else, or you can do the verification during one of the training sessions. Sometimes the unexpected happens, and you need to change rooms, computers, or networks during the conference. Remember to verify your camera and microphone before the roll call. By the way, when a meeting is in progress, leave your camera on, even if you step away. This lets the facilitator know you are still listening.
Voting and all of the processes of this conference require that you be able to raise your virtual hand. You do this by finding the Reactions button in the bottom of your Zoom window and clicking on the option to Raise Hand. Set your hand color to a high visibility color, preferably bright yellow. You do this clicking on the Reactions button, then click on the three dots to open the expanded selection tool. Next, click on the skin tone symbol. In the previous conference, everyone was asked to set their hand color to bright yellow. Try raising your hand during a Zoom session to see if your hand is visible. Check to see if your hand color is clearly visible against your background. If the background behind you is a real room and not a virtual background, but your hand is not visible, see if you can shift positions. Or consider hanging a sheet or some other colored cloth behind you. If you have the option to use a virtual background, then try changing to a different image. If you have not used a virtual background before, you can try one in advance of the conference. You do not want to be fidgeting with setting changes during the conference, because that is distracting for you and for others in the conference. To change your virtual background, click on the green shield in the upper left corner of your Zoom window. Then click on the gear icon in the upper right of the meeting information pop-up. This will open the Zoom settings window. Click on Background and Effects. If you try to pick a background, Zoom might say that your computer does not support that option. If you want to add another background, click on the plus symbol, then find a picture you like and load it as your background.
When the facilitator calls for a vote, raise your virtual hand if you want to vote in favor, and keep your hand raised. Members of the technical team will then use the Zoom participants window to see how many hands are raised. When the vote has been counted and confirmed, the facilitator will ask the technical team to lower all the raised hands. The facilitator will then verify that all hands have been lowered. The facilitator will then declare the results. By beginning with the total number of voting members from the roll call and subtracting the number of members who voted yes, to determine the number of members who voted against yes. This means that anyone who did not vote will be counted as if they voted no.
There are other parliamentary procedures that occur between votes. These procedures are covered in more detail in the presentation on Robert's Rules and in the presentation on the Standing Rules of Order. All of these parliamentary procedures begin when you raise your hand and wait to be called on by the facilitator. When you start to speak, you might notice a pair of time clocks appear in one of the Zoom windows. One clock shows how long the meeting has been working on this specific item of business. The other clock shows how long you have been speaking. Please respect the amount of time that has been given you. One final item. There are times when the facilitator will ask the secretary to do a roll call. And rather than responding with present, you might be asked to respond by saying in favor, or opposed, or abstain. The facilitator will explain this process in more detail if it is needed.
The Western Regions of Narnon Family Groups is a collection of regions that work together to provide services in support of the associated regions and for Narnon as a whole. We're serving as the coordinators of this project and invite members from throughout the world to participate in finding ways to help members, groups, and regions learn about the motions in the 2023 World Service Conference Agenda Report.
God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.